I walked into my house early and followed the trail of his clothes to our bedroom. Her moans echoed through the walls, each one cutting deeper than the last. I didn't interrupt. I just stood there quietly letting them finish, because the real ending belongs to me. The trail started at my front door and ended at my marriage. Men's size 12 Italian leather shoes kicked carelessly aside. Navy blazer draped over the banister like a surrender flag. White button-down twisted on the third step. I followed each piece of evidence up my own staircase, the Morrison deal celebration forgotten as I climbed toward the sounds coming from our bedroom. Emma's voice carried through the walls, breathless and desperate, calling out David's name in ways I hadn't heard in years. I reached our bedroom door and froze, hand hovering over the handle while passion exploded just inches away. Her moans echoed through the house, each one cutting deeper into my chest. But I didn't burst through that door. Instead, I backed away quietly and let them finish. Because the real ending to this story belonged to me. My briefcase slipped from my shoulder, landing with a muffled thud on the hallway carpet. Inside it, champagne bottles waited to celebrate the Morrison acquisition that had just made me the youngest senior partner in Blackstone and Associates history. 7 figures in bonus money sat in my account, enough to fund the surprise anniversary trip to Tuscany I'd secretly booked that morning. The confirmation email was still open on my phone, villa reservation glowing on the screen while my sister's voice reached a crescendo behind our bedroom door. Before we continue, I want to thank you for joining me in sharing these stories that matter. If you believe that justice and loyalty still matter when betrayal strikes closest to home, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach more women who need to hear this. Now let's see how this unfolds. I backed down the hallway on silent feet, muscle memory guiding me past the family photos that lined our walls. David and me at our law school graduation. Emma as my maid of honor, radiant in pink silk. The 3 of us last Christmas, arms wrapped around each other like we'd never let go. Every smiling face now felt like evidence of an elaborate deception I'd been too trusting to see. The guest bathroom became my sanctuary. I locked the door and sat on the marble vanity, phone trembling in my hands as I opened the voice recording app. The sounds from upstairs carried clearly through our old Victorian's thin walls. Emma's breathless whispers. David's deep groans. The rhythmic creaking of our bed frame, the same frame we'd picked out together on our 3rd anniversary. 2 minutes and 37 seconds. That's how long I recorded before silence fell upstairs. 2 minutes and 37 seconds of documented evidence that would change everything. My reflection stared back from the vanity mirror. Rebecca Stone, corporate law shark. The woman who'd just closed the most complex merger deal in Chicago this year. My charcoal suit was still perfectly pressed, lipstick unsmudged, not a hair out of place. I looked exactly like the successful attorney who'd left the office an hour ago, riding high on professional triumph. But behind my eyes lurked something colder, more calculating than the woman I'd been that morning. The floorboards creaked overhead as they moved around our bedroom. Soft voices drifted down, too quiet to make out words but intimate in their tone. I checked the time on my phone. 3:42 p.m. David wasn't supposed to be home until after 7. His Tuesday client presentations with Henderson Industries always ran late, or so he'd told me for the past 6 months. 6 months. The timeline crystallized in my mind with mathematical precision. Emma's sudden interest in fitness classes near David's office. Her new wardrobe of expensive lingerie she'd modeled for me during our shopping trips. David's increased travel schedule and late nights. The distance that had crept into our conversations, the way he'd started checking his phone constantly during dinner. All the pieces I'd dismissed as normal marriage evolution suddenly formed a clear pattern. They'd been planning this for months, meeting in hotels, texting during family dinners, laughing at private jokes while I sat obliviously beside them. The guest bathroom's window overlooked our backyard, where David had spent last weekend building Emma a pergola for her new apartment's patio. "Just helping my sister-in-law," he'd said, sweating in the October heat while I brought them cold drinks. They'd worked side by side for hours, hands brushing as they passed tools, sharing smiles that now carried entirely different meaning. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. "Congratulations on Morrison. The partners want to take you to dinner at Lou Bernardine. Can you make 7 p.m.? I stared at the message, remembering how I'd planned to decline any celebrations tonight. How I'd wanted to rush home and surprise David with champagne and Tuscany reservations. How I'd imagined his face lighting up when I told him about our romantic week in the same region where we'd honeymooned 8 years ago. Instead I typed back, "Absolutely. See you there." Footsteps moved across our bedroom floor above, followed by the sound of our shower turning on. They were cleaning up, erasing evidence, preparing to pretend this never happened. Emma would probably drive home to her apartment, text me later about coffee plans and sister gossip. David would arrive downstairs in 20 minutes, kiss my cheek and ask about my day while the scent of my sister still lingered on his skin. But I wouldn't be here for their performance. I wouldn't sit through dinner making small talk while they exchanged knowing glances. I wouldn't pretend not to notice the flush in Emma's cheeks or the satisfaction in David's smile. Instead, I would go celebrate my professional triumph with colleagues who respected my mind and valued my integrity. I would toast my success while planning their destruction with the same methodical precision I used to dismantle opposing arguments in court. The shower water stopped running. Voices murmured behind our bedroom door, followed by the soft sounds of dressing. I slipped out of the guest bathroom and down the back staircase, moving through my own house like a burglar avoiding detection. In my study, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. Screenshots of David's credit card statements I'd never thought to examine closely. Photos of the clothing trail with timestamps. The voice recording uploaded to cloud storage with multiple backup copies. Evidence that would hold up in any court, personal or professional. Emma's car started in our driveway just as I finished creating the file folder labeled Divorce Proceedings Adultery Documentation. Through my study window, I watched her BMW pull away, my sister driving off without a backward glance at the house where she'd just destroyed her own family. David's footsteps echoed through the kitchen, followed by the sound of him starting coffee. Normal sounds of a normal afternoon, as if the last hour had been just another Tuesday in our ordinary marriage. But there was nothing ordinary about what came next. Because while they'd been upstairs writing the end of our relationships, I'd been downstairs planning the beginning of their consequences. The real ending to this story belonged to me. And I was about to make sure it was one they'd never forget. The coffee maker gurgled in the kitchen while I opened David's laptop in my study. His password hadn't changed in 3 years, Emma's birthday, ironically enough. The screen illuminated with his email inbox, browser history, and shared cloud storage that I'd helped him set up for work efficiency. What I found there would redefine efficiency entirely. His Chase credit card statements loaded first, months of transactions I'd never bothered checking since we maintained separate business accounts. Palmer Hotel, every Tuesday for the past 6 months. $247 each visit. Room service charges followed champagne, chocolate-covered strawberries, late checkout fees. The Henderson Industries meetings that supposedly kept him out until 9 were actually 2-hour hotel stays that ended by 5. I cross-referenced the dates with my calendar. Every Tuesday I'd worked late preparing for the Morrison acquisition. David had been 3 miles away in a luxury suite with my sister. March 15th. I'd stayed until midnight reviewing contracts while they celebrated Emma's promotion with champagne and room service. April 22nd. I'd skipped dinner to prepare depositions while they ordered dessert to share between Egyptian cotton sheets. The Marriott downtown showed similar patterns on different days. Thursday afternoons when David claimed client dinners. Weekend mornings when he said he was playing golf with Marcus. Even a weekend getaway to Madison that coincided with Emma's supposed yoga retreat. They documented their entire affair through expense accounts and location services. My fingers moved mechanically across the keyboard, screenshotting evidence with legal precision. Each image saved with timestamps, each receipt categorized by date and location. 6 months of betrayal reduced to a digital paper trail that would be admissible in any court. David's browser history revealed searches that made my stomach clench. Best weekend getaways near Chicago. Romantic restaurants downtown. Anniversary gifts for her. He'd been planning romantic gestures for Emma while forgetting our actual anniversary was next week. The jewelry website bookmark showed earrings he'd never bought me, the spa package reservations meant for hands that weren't mine. But it was Emma's social media that painted the clearest picture. Her Instagram showed fitness classes at the gym 6 blocks from David's office, tagged locations I'd never heard her mention. Coffee shop check-ins during my work hours, restaurant visits on days she told me she was too busy for lunch. Her new wardrobe suddenly made perfect sense. Designer dresses she'd modeled for me during shopping trips, asking my opinion on colors and styles meant to seduce my husband. 3 blocks away. That's where Emma had rented an apartment under her maiden name, Emma Charlotte instead of Emma Mills. Property records showed a 6-month lease signed the same week David's hotel visits began. She'd been playing house with my husband while asking me for relationship advice about some mysterious man she was taking things slow with. The cloud storage revealed David's text messages, automatically synced from his phone. Months of conversations between Henderson client and Emma M. that read like love letters disguised as business correspondence. Tuesday strategy session confirmed meant hotel reservations. Need to review portfolio details, was code for I miss you. Client wants extended consultation, translated to spending the entire afternoon in bed. My phone buzzed with a text from the real Henderson Industries. Looking forward to continuing our project discussions next quarter. Thanks for the excellent presentation last month. When David claimed to be in weekly meetings with them, the actual client had only met with him once. Coffee grew cold on my desk as I dug deeper into David's professional deceptions. Email chains with Marcus showed increasing frustration about David's unavailability during crucial client meetings. Missed deadlines blamed on Henderson account demands that didn't exist. Project delays attributed to client revisions that were never requested. But the most damaging evidence sat in a folder labeled personal insurance. Photos taken by the private investigator I'd hired 3 weeks ago, when David's behavior finally triggered my attorney instincts. Images of them entering the Palmer Hotel together, Emma's head on David's shoulder in his car, their kiss outside her secret apartment building. 24 pictures total, date-stamped and geo-tagged, documenting their affair with courtroom-quality precision. I'd suspected something after Emma started asking detailed questions about divorce law during our coffee dates. Her curiosity about prenuptial agreements, property division, spousal support seemed academic at the time. Now I understood she was researching my vulnerabilities, gathering intelligence for their eventual plan to leave me. The investigation deepened as I accessed Emma's business contracts through our firm's client database. Her influencer endorsements included morality clauses with every major brand. The wellness company that sponsored her fitness content, the lifestyle brand that featured her family-friendly image, the skincare line that marketed her as the trustworthy sister figure, all contained reputation protection language that her affair would violate. David's employment contract revealed similar vulnerabilities. His marketing firm specialized in family-oriented brands, with ethics clauses that prohibited behavior damaging to client relationships. His affair with a client, because Emma's lifestyle brand used their services, represented multiple professional violations that could terminate his partnership immediately. The pieces connected with mathematical precision. David had compromised his professional ethics by conducting an affair with a client, creating conflict of interest violations and potential lawsuits for his firm. Emma had violated her endorsement contracts by engaging in behavior that damaged her family-friendly brand image. Together they'd created enough legal exposure to destroy both their careers. My laptop screen filled with organized folders, hotel receipts, credit card statements, text message screenshots, private investigator photos, contract violations, professional ethics breaches. 6 months of their deception categorized and documented with the thoroughness that had made me Blackstone's youngest senior partner. David's footsteps approached the study door just as I closed the final folder. His coffee mug clinked against the doorframe as he peered inside, shirt perfectly pressed, hair still damp from the shower he'd shared with Emma 20 minutes earlier. "Hey babe, didn't expect you home so early," he said, voice carrying the casual tone of a man who believed his secrets were safe. I minimized the browser windows and smiled at my husband, the same smile I used with opposing counsel right before delivering devastating cross-examinations. Morrison deal closed ahead of schedule. Thought I'd come home and celebrate with my loving family. The word family hung between us, loaded with meaning only I understood. David smiled back, completely unaware that his celebration was about to become his funeral. Because while he'd been upstairs compromising his marriage, I'd been downstairs building the case that would end everything he'd worked to build. The evidence was complete. The investigation was finished. Now came the part I'd trained my entire career for. The systematic destruction of my opponents using nothing but facts, documentation, and the devastating power of truth. Celebrating sounds perfect, David said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Maybe we could open that bottle of Dom Perignon we've been saving? Order takeout from Chez Laurent. I kept typing on my laptop, fingers moving across keys that pulled up files he couldn't see from his angle. Actually, I think we should wait for Emma. She'll want to hear about the Morrison deal too. His coffee mug paused halfway to his lips. Emma? Why would she care about your work stuff? Oh, I think my sister cares about a lot of things that happen in this house. I closed the laptop with deliberate precision and stood, smoothing my skirt. In fact, I'm sure she'll be down any minute. David's eyes followed my movement toward the kitchen, confusion flickering across his face. He had no idea Emma was still upstairs, probably fixing her makeup in our guest bathroom, preparing to sneak out the back door like she had dozens of times before. The wine cabinet held a bottle of Malbec I'd been saving for a special occasion. This certainly qualified. I uncorked it slowly, letting the sound echo through the house, then poured 3 glasses. Red wine seemed appropriate for what was about to unfold. Becca, you're acting strange, David called from the study. Is everything okay? Everything's about to be perfect, I replied, carrying the glasses into the living room and setting them on our coffee table. 3 glasses arranged in a triangle, like the toxic relationship they represented. Footsteps creaked on the upstairs floorboards, Emma trying to move quietly across our bedroom. She'd probably spent the last 10 minutes erasing evidence, smoothing our bedspread, spraying air freshener to mask the scent of their afternoon together. But she couldn't erase the digital trail I'd already documented. David appeared in the living room doorway, drawn by the wine setup. 3 glasses? Are we expecting someone? We're expecting honesty, I said, settling into my favorite armchair with clear sight lines to both the front door and the staircase. Something this house hasn't seen in 6 months. The color drained from his face like water from a broken glass. He opened his mouth to respond just as Emma's footsteps reached the main staircase. She was trying to sneak out, but our old Victorian's wooden steps betrayed every movement. Emma, I called sweetly. Could you join us in the living room? I have wonderful news to share. The footsteps stopped completely. Silence stretched between all 3 floors of our house like a tightening noose. Then slowly, deliberately, Emma's heels clicked down the remaining steps. She appeared in our doorway wearing David's white button-down over her jeans, the shirt hanging loose and obviously masculine. Her hair was finger-combed but still tousled, lipstick gone, cheeks flushed with guilt and recent passion. When she saw me sitting calmly with 3 glasses of wine, her face went white. Rebecca, she whispered, my name falling from her lips like a confession. Hello, sister. I was just telling David about my incredible day. The Morrison acquisition closed early, and I decided to come home and surprise my loving family. I gestured to the empty seats. Please, both of you sit down. We have so much to discuss. Emma's eyes darted toward the front door, then back to David, then to me. She was calculating escape routes that didn't exist, finally understanding that this wasn't a discovery, it was a trial and I was the prosecutor. David found his voice first, though it came out strained. Becca, we can explain everything. It's not what it looks like. Really? I reached for my phone and opened the voice recording from an hour ago. The sound of Emma moaning David's name filled our living room, crystal clear and utterly damning. I let it play for exactly 10 seconds before pressing stop. Because it sounds exactly like what it looks like. Emma sank onto our sofa like her legs couldn't support her anymore. David remained standing, hands clenched into fists, his boardroom confidence crumbling into desperate damage control. How long have you been recording us? He demanded. Long enough. But really, David, I didn't need recordings. I pulled out my laptop and opened it to display the hotel receipts. Palmer Hotel, every Tuesday for 6 months. Marriott downtown for your Thursday client dinners. The apartment Emma rented 3 blocks away under her maiden name. Should I continue? Emma made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. Rebecca, I never meant for this to happen. We didn't plan it. You didn't plan it? I laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. Emma, you rented an apartment in February. David started booking hotel rooms in March. You've been planning this for half a year while asking me for relationship advice about your mysterious new man. David stepped forward, trying to regain control. Look, our marriage has been struggling for months. You're always working, we barely talk anymore. Emma was just someone I could connect with. Connect with? I stood slowly, wine glass in hand. Is that what you call compromising your professional ethics by conducting an affair with a client? Because Emma's lifestyle brand uses your firm's services, doesn't it, David? His face went gray. He'd forgotten about the professional implications, the conflict of interest that could destroy his partnership. And Emma, I turned to my sister, who was now openly crying. How exactly do you plan to explain this to your wellness sponsors? The family-friendly brands that pay you to represent wholesome values? I have photos of you two kissing outside your secret apartment. Very family-friendly. Emma's tears turned to sobs. Please, Rebecca. I know I messed up, but we can work through this. I'm your sister. You are my sister. Past tense. I walked to my laptop and turned the screen toward them. Divorce papers already drafted. David, you have 48 hours to collect your belongings and find somewhere else to live. The prenup we signed is ironclad. Adultery voids any claim to my assets. David's hands were shaking now, his usual charm completely useless. Becca, please. Don't do this. We can go to counseling, work things out. Emma, you're fired from our firm's marketing campaign, effective immediately. I'll be notifying your sponsors about your morality clause violations first thing tomorrow morning. I closed the laptop with finality. Both of your careers are about to become very interesting. Emma looked up at me with mascara-streaked cheeks. You're destroying our lives over a mistake. I'm not destroying anything. You two did that when you decided to have an affair in my house, in my bed, while lying to my face for 6 months. I set down my wine glass and walked toward the door. I'm simply documenting the consequences. David made one last desperate attempt. Where are you going? We need to talk about this. I picked up my purse and car keys, feeling lighter than I had in months. I'm going to celebrate the Morrison deal with colleagues who respect integrity. You two can see yourselves out. Just remember 48 hours, David. After that, the locks change. The front door closed behind me with satisfying finality, leaving them alone in the wreckage of their choices. They'd thought they were writing a love story. Instead, they'd authored their own destruction, and I was simply the editor making sure their ending was properly punctuated. The engine of my BMW purred to life as I reversed out of the driveway, leaving David and Emma to process the wreckage of their afternoon delight. But this was just the opening act. Real destruction required precision, timing, and the kind of professional connections I'd spent 15 years cultivating. My first call went to Marcus Richardson, David's business partner and the brains behind their marketing firm's success. Marcus answered on the second ring, his voice carrying the stress of someone dealing with crisis management. Rebecca, this is unexpected. Is David available? He missed our Henderson Industries presentation this afternoon. That's exactly why I'm calling, Marcus. David isn't handling the Henderson account anymore. In fact, he's not handling any accounts anymore. I pulled into the parking garage of Lou Bernardine, where my celebration dinner awaited. Check your email in the next 5 minutes. You'll understand everything. I sent the entire package while walking toward the restaurant. Private investigator photos, hotel receipts, text message screenshots, documentation of David using client meetings as cover for his affair. The evidence was damning and comprehensive. Marcus called back before I reached the hostess stand. Jesus Christ, Rebecca. How long has this been going on? His voice carried a mixture of shock and relief. I've been suspicious for months. David's been unavailable during crucial client meetings, missing deadlines, claiming Henderson demanded more time than any account justified. 6 months of documented fraud, Marcus. He's been billing client hours for hotel stays, using company resources to facilitate his affair, creating potential liability for your firm. I accepted the menu from our server while keeping my voice professional. Emma's lifestyle brand is officially your client too, which means David violated conflict of interest protocols along with basic human decency. The partnership agreement has ethics clauses for exactly this situation, Marcus said, and I could hear papers rustling in the background. Emergency partner meeting tonight. David suspended immediately, pending full investigation. Smart move. I'd also recommend reviewing all his client billings for the past 6 months. You'll find interesting discrepancies between actual work performed and hours charged. I ordered the wine pairing menu, celebrating while Marcus dealt with damage control. The Henderson Industries people will be very interested to learn they've been paying for David's romantic getaways. The conversation ended with Marcus thanking me for the evidence and promising swift action. One down. Emma's destruction required a different approach. Her income came from endorsement deals built on carefully crafted image management. Sponsors paid premium rates for her wholesome, family-friendly brand that promoted wellness, integrity, and trustworthy lifestyle advice. My second call went to Jennifer Walsh, marketing director at Serenity Wellness Company, Emma's biggest sponsor. Jennifer and I had worked together on several corporate acquisitions, and she trusted my judgment completely. Rebecca, what a pleasant surprise. Are you calling about Emma's contract renewal? We've been thrilled with her engagement rates. Actually, Jennifer, I'm calling about Emma's morality clause violations. You'll want to schedule an emergency board meeting. I sent her the evidence package while our server poured wine. Emma's been conducting an affair with a married man, her sister's husband, specifically. I have photos, documentation, and recorded evidence. The silence on Jennifer's end stretched long enough for me to take 3 sips of wine. Oh my God, Rebecca. This is devastating. Serenity's entire brand foundation is family values and authentic relationships. We can't be associated with this kind of scandal. I understand completely. I'm actually Emma's sister, so this is personally painful but professionally necessary. Her contract contains clear reputation protection clauses that this affair violates. I kept my voice sympathetic while delivering the death blow. I thought you deserved to know before it becomes public knowledge. Jennifer's response was swift and brutal. Emergency board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Emma's contract suspension pending investigation. Immediate removal of her content from all Serenity platforms. The domino effect I'd predicted began falling exactly as planned. The third call targeted Emma's secondary sponsors. The skincare line that featured her in their Trusted Sister campaign. The fitness brand that promoted her workout routines. The sustainable fashion company that used her family-friendly image. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Shocked silence, grateful thanks for the heads up, immediate damage control measures. By the time our appetizers arrived, Emma had lost approximately 60% of her annual income. David's professional destruction required more delicate timing. His firm needed to discover his ethics violations through proper channels to avoid wrongful termination lawsuits. But Marcus's call came right on schedule. Rebecca, the emergency partners meeting just ended. David's terminated immediately, effective tonight. We're reviewing all his client billings and may pursue legal action for fraudulent invoicing. Marcus sounded exhausted. His access to company accounts, client lists, and confidential information has been revoked. Security is collecting his personal items right now. What about the Henderson Industries situation? We're meeting with them tomorrow morning to explain David's deception and offer a complete billing audit. They're understandably concerned about paying for services that were never rendered. Paper rustled again. There's also the matter of David's equity stake in the firm. Partnership agreements include forfeiture clauses for ethics violations. David's financial foundation was crumbling in real time. No job, no partnership equity, no professional references, and potential legal action for fraud. The man who'd built his identity around marketing success would be unemployable in his own industry. But the final piece required careful media management. Chicago's marketing trade publications thrived on industry scandal, but I needed to control the narrative to protect my own reputation while destroying theirs. My call to Sarah Mitchell at Marketing Weekly was perfectly timed. Sarah owed me a favor from the Jameson merger case, and her publication reached every decision-maker in Chicago's marketing community. Sarah, I have an exclusive story about professional ethics violations at Richardson & Associates. Major partner terminated for client fraud, conflict of interest violations, and billing irregularities. I gave her enough details to write a compelling story without mentioning the personal aspects. David Richardson was conducting affairs with clients while billing fraudulent hours to their accounts. The story would run in tomorrow's digital edition, ensuring David's name became toxic throughout the industry before he could spin his own version of events. Emma's destruction hit trade publications differently. Influencer marketing blogs picked up the story about morality clause violations and sponsor contract terminations. Her professional reputation would be destroyed without me ever mentioning our family relationship. My phone buzzed with text messages as words spread through professional networks. Colleagues expressing shock about David's termination. Marketing directors thanking me for the heads-up about Emma's scandal. Industry connections distancing themselves from both my former husband and sister. The wine paired perfectly with my satisfaction. While David and Emma were probably still sitting in my living room trying to process their confrontation, their professional worlds were collapsing in real time. Phone calls, emails, emergency meetings, contract terminations, security escorts from office buildings. They'd thought their afternoon affair was a private matter between consenting adults. Instead, it had become a case study in how personal choices create professional consequences. Their reputations would never recover from this kind of industry-wide exposure. The real beauty was the systematic precision of it all. No emotional outbursts, no dramatic scenes, just methodical destruction using the same professional networks they'd built their careers upon. Their professional lives were over. Now came the interesting part, watching them try to survive the financial and social aftermath of their choices. My celebration dinner ended with a dessert course sweeter than any chef could prepare. Text messages documenting the financial implosion happening in real time. The first came from Marcus at 9:47 p.m., his words carrying the weight of corporate inevitability. Rebecca, partnership buyout calculated. Ethics violations trigger lowest valuation clause. David gets $47,000 for 7 years of equity. Profit sharing eliminated retroactively. Client portfolio being redistributed tomorrow. Sorry for the mess he created. $47,000. David had invested his entire adult life building that partnership, contributing sweat equity, bringing in major accounts, working 80-hour weeks to earn his stake in the firm. His affair had reduced 7 years of professional building to less than most people's annual salary. The financial penalty clauses were particularly brutal. Richardson and Associates had written their partnership agreements with ironclad protection against exactly this kind of ethics violation. Professional misconduct triggered forfeiture of profit-sharing bonuses, client commission residuals, and future equity growth. David wouldn't just lose his job, he'd lose every financial benefit he'd earned over the past 3 years. My phone buzzed again with a notification from Emma's Instagram account. Her follower count was dropping in real time, 127,000 down to 123,000 in the hour since news started spreading through industry networks. Each lost follower represented decreased value to sponsors who paid premium rates for her engagement metrics. But the real devastation was in the contracts being terminated simultaneously. Serenity Wellness had moved fastest, posting a statement about parting ways with brand ambassadors whose personal conduct conflicts with our family values. The domino effect spread through her sponsorship portfolio like wildfire through dry grass. FitLife Athletic terminated her fitness campaign, pulling her workout videos from their platform and demanding return of unreleased product payments. The sustainable fashion brand canceled her upcoming collection launch, which represented 6 months of work and a significant portion of her annual income. Even the local coffee shop chain ended her morning routine sponsorship, not wanting to associate their community family image with adultery scandal. I pulled up Emma's financial projections from our firm's client files. Her income stream had been diverse and substantial, $180,000 annually from primary sponsorships, $75,000 from secondary partnerships, $45,000 from appearance fees and speaking engagements. All of it built on the carefully curated image of trustworthy lifestyle expertise that her affair had demolished in one afternoon. The real estate implications hit next. Emma's luxury apartment lease was in her name alone, but the monthly rent of $4,200 was manageable only with her sponsorship income. Without those contracts, she'd be facing eviction within 2 months. The apartment she'd rented as a love nest would become a financial burden she couldn't afford. David's situation was even more precarious. Our prenuptial agreement included specific adultery clauses that voided any claim to marital property. The house, the investment accounts, the vacation home in Michigan, all remained mine exclusively. He'd be looking for bachelor apartments on a terminated employee's budget while still paying lawyers to minimize his professional damage. My phone rang as I signed the dinner check. Emma's name appeared on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Her message played back in the restaurant bathroom, her voice shaky with panic. Rebecca, please call me back. Serenity terminated my contract tonight. They're demanding return of the advance payment for next quarter's campaign. I don't have that money. I already spent it on the apartment deposit and new equipment. Please, I need legal advice. I know you're angry, but I'm your sister. I can't afford an attorney right now. The irony was delicious. Emma needed legal help dealing with the consequences of betraying the sister who happened to be Chicago's most ruthless corporate attorney. But my legal services came with a premium that her collapsed income stream couldn't support. David's financial reality became clearer through my banking app notifications. Our joint checking account showed his desperate attempts to access funds that were no longer available to him. Declined charges at an extended stay hotel, a rejected application for a business credit line, failed transfers from accounts that required both signatures for withdrawal. The prenup had been my idea 8 years ago, over David's romantic protests about trusting love over legal protection. Now that same document was his financial death sentence, protecting every asset I'd brought into our marriage and earned during it. By midnight, my phone was buzzing with updates from various financial institutions. Emma's credit applications were being rejected due to sudden income instability. David's attempts to secure emergency loans were declined based on employment termination and professional reputation concerns. Both of them were discovering that financial institutions move quickly when scandal threatens repayment ability. The legal fees would be crushing. David needed employment law representation for his termination dispute, ethics violation defense, and potential fraud charges from billing irregularities. Emma required contract law expertise for multiple breach notifications, plus reputation management for her public relations crisis. Premium attorneys charge $500 to $800 per hour for this kind of damage control. David's case alone would generate $50,000 in legal fees before reaching any resolution. Emma's multiple contract disputes could easily cost $75,000 in representation. Combined, their legal expenses would exceed what many people earn in 2 years. Meanwhile, I was handling my own divorce proceedings personally, saving attorney fees while ensuring every detail protected my interests. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd need expensive legal help to deal with consequences I was creating using my own legal expertise. The credit rating destruction would be equally devastating. Late payments to creditors, defaulted endorsement advances, employment termination notifications, all of it would appear on their credit reports within 30 days. Their credit scores would plummet from excellent to subprime, making future apartment leases, car loans, and business opportunities exponentially more expensive. David's professional references were already contaminated. Marcus had confirmed that Richardson and Associates would provide only basic employment verification, with notes about ethics violations in his personnel file. No glowing recommendations, no positive character references, no professional networking support for job searches. Emma's situation was worse because her work depended entirely on public reputation. Influencer marketing required brands to trust that audiences would respond positively to sponsored content. Her association with adultery scandal made her untouchable for family-friendly brands, which represented 90% of the available market. The overnight financial transformation was staggering. 24 hours ago, David and Emma were successful professionals with bright financial futures. Tonight they were unemployed, facing legal bills they couldn't afford, with damaged credit and toxic professional reputations. Their afternoon affair had cost them everything they'd worked years to build. And this was just the beginning. The legal, financial, and professional consequences would continue rippling through their lives for months to come. The real ending to this story was being written in bank account balances, credit reports, and employment applications. While they'd been writing love letters, I'd been writing their financial obituaries with the same precision that had made me Chicago's youngest senior partner. Money talks loudest of all, and their bank accounts were screaming the price of betrayal. The hardest call came at 6:43 a.m. the next morning, before my parents could hear about Emma's scandal from anyone else. Mom answered on the first ring, her voice bright with early morning energy that I was about to extinguish forever. "Rebecca, honey. You're up early. How did the Morrison celebration go last night?" I sat in my kitchen with coffee growing cold, staring at family photos on the refrigerator while preparing to destroy everything they represented. Mom, I need to tell you something about Emma and David. Please sit down and put Dad on speaker. The silence stretched long enough for me to hear their bedroom door closing, footsteps moving downstairs, the kitchen chairs scraping against tile. 23 years of marriage had taught them to recognize crisis in their daughter's voice. We're both here, sweetheart, Dad said, his voice carrying the careful control of a man preparing for bad news. What's wrong? Emma has been having an affair with David for 6 months. I came home yesterday and found them together in our bedroom. The words came out clinical, professional, stripped of emotion because feeling it would break me. Their relationship is over, David is moving out and Emma is no longer part of our family. Mom's gasp turned into a sob that carried through the phone like a physical blow. Dad's silence was worse, the kind of quiet that comes from a man processing rage and disappointment in equal measure. Oh God, Rebecca. Oh God, no. Mom's voice cracked with each word. Not Emma. She wouldn't, she couldn't. I have photos, Mom. Recordings. Hotel receipts. 6 months of documented evidence. I couldn't spare them the brutal truth, couldn't let them hope for misunderstandings or reconciliation. She rented an apartment 3 blocks from my house specifically for their affair. Dad's voice, when it finally came, carried 30 years of parental authority reduced to ash. Emma is no longer welcome in this house. She's no longer welcome at family gatherings. As far as I'm concerned, we have 1 daughter now. The finality in his tone surprised me. Dad had always been Emma's champion, the parent who defended her impulsive choices and creative career path. But adultery with her sister's husband crossed every moral boundary he held sacred. What about Christmas? Mom whispered, and I could picture her looking around their decorated house, already calculating which traditions would die with Emma's banishment. Thanksgiving? Her birthday? New traditions, I said firmly. Ones that don't include people who destroy families for fun. The conversation ended with promises to call later, after they'd processed the devastation. But I knew our family dynamic had shifted permanently. 4 people had become 3 overnight, and the vacancy where Emma once belonged would be too painful to ignore. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma's 16-year-old daughter Madison. Aunt Rebecca, why are all Mom's brand deals getting cancelled? Kids at school are saying stuff about her online. What's happening? Madison and her 14-year-old brother Tyler had built their own small social media followings based on their mother's lifestyle brand. Colleges had been recruiting Madison for social media marketing programs, impressed by her authentic content creation skills. Tyler's gaming channel had attracted sponsors who valued his connection to Emma's family-friendly audience. All of that evaporated with their mother's scandal. Madison's college prospects would suffer when admissions officers Googled her family name. Tyler's gaming sponsors would distance themselves from any association with Emma's tainted reputation. The children were paying for their mother's choices in ways they couldn't fully understand yet. I didn't respond to Madison's text. How do you explain to teenagers that their mother destroyed their opportunities along with their family? David's mother called during my drive to the office, her voice shaking with shame and apology. Margaret Richardson had raised David to be better than this, instilled values that should have prevented exactly this kind of betrayal. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I'm ashamed of my son. I don't know how he could do this to you, to his marriage, to Emma's family. Her words came through tears that sounded like they'd been building for hours. I failed as a mother somewhere. You didn't fail, Margaret. David made his choices as an adult. I kept my voice gentle because David's parents didn't deserve punishment for their son's moral bankruptcy. But I hope you understand why I can't maintain our relationship going forward. Of course you can't. Will you tell me if you need anything? I know David's father's business connections are already distancing themselves from our family. Everyone in our social circle knows by now. The Richardson family's reputation was collateral damage in David's professional destruction. His father's golf partners were already canceling their Thursday games. His mother's charity board positions were becoming awkward as other members whispered about her son's scandal. David had contaminated his entire family's social standing with his affair. The personal cost became clearer as mutual friends began choosing sides. Sarah and Michael Patterson, our couple friends for 8 years, called that afternoon with careful neutrality that fooled no one. Rebecca, we heard about you and David separating, Sarah said, her voice artificially bright. We want you to know we're here for both of you during this difficult time. Both of us. I laughed bitterly. Sarah, David was having an affair with my sister in my house for 6 months. There's no both sides to support here. The silence that followed told me everything about where their loyalties lay. Sarah and Michael valued social harmony over moral clarity, the kind of people who would suggest forgiveness and moving forward rather than acknowledging the depth of betrayal. Other friends responded differently. Jennifer Walsh from my law school class called within hours of hearing the news, her voice blazing with righteous anger. What can I do? Do you need somewhere to stay? Should I have him killed? I know people. Her fierce loyalty reminded me why true friendships survive crisis while superficial ones crumble. Emma can go straight to hell and David can drive the bus. The friend audit was brutal but clarifying. Couples who prioritized marriage preservation over justice gradually stopped inviting me to gatherings that included David. Friends who understood betrayal rallied with offers of support, spare bedrooms and character assassination services. Holiday traditions would be the hardest casualties. Thanksgiving at my parents' house had always been chaotic perfection. Emma's dramatic stories, David's terrible jokes, Mom's overcooking, Dad's football commentary. Christmas morning gift exchanges, birthday celebrations, summer barbecues. Every family tradition now carried the ghost of relationships that no longer existed. I spent that evening alone in our house, walking through rooms that David would never occupy again, looking at family photos that would need to be stored away. The guest bedroom where Emma had slept during holidays, the kitchen where she'd helped me cook countless meals, the back deck where David had grilled while we planned futures that no longer mattered. The grief was unexpected in its intensity. I'd lost more than a marriage and a sister. I'd lost an entire infrastructure of relationships, traditions, and shared history. The life I'd built over 8 years was being demolished not by my choices but by theirs. My phone lit up with Emma's 20th call of the day. I let it go to voicemail like all the others, her increasingly desperate messages forming a soundtrack to the family destruction she'd orchestrated. Rebecca, please. Mom won't take my calls. Dad hung up on me. I know I messed up but I'm still your sister. We can work through this. Please don't let one mistake destroy our family. One mistake. 6 months of calculated deception reduced to a simple error in judgment. The delusion was almost admirable in its completeness. The family bonds weren't just severed, they were incinerated. And from the ashes I would build something new. Something honest. Something that couldn't be destroyed by people who confused temporary pleasure with permanent consequences. 3 months later, I discovered that revenge tastes best when served with morning coffee and LinkedIn notifications. David's profile updates had become my guilty pleasure, each career milestone a step further down the ladder he'd once climbed with such confidence. David Richardson seeks new opportunities in digital marketing, appeared on my feed like a prayer from the desperate. His previous title of Senior Partner Richardson and Associates had been quietly edited to Marketing Professional with extensive experience. The company he'd co-founded no longer existed in his professional history, erased like their 8-year partnership had never happened. His job applications were being rejected faster than Marcus could recommend alternative candidates to fill his former role. I knew because Chicago's marketing community was surprisingly small, and word traveled through professional networks like wildfire through drought-stricken forests. Rebecca, thought you should know David interviewed at Sterling Marketing yesterday, Jennifer Walsh had called to report. He's asking for 60% of his previous salary and they still passed. His reputation is toxic. Nobody wants to hire someone who defrauds clients for personal affairs. The LinkedIn messaging became increasingly desperate as weeks turned to months. David had started reaching out to distant college connections, former clients, anyone with a marketing budget and poor background check procedures. His messages read like carefully crafted cover letters, explaining away the Richardson and Associates termination as pursuing new challenges and seeking growth opportunities. But Chicago's business community had long memories and excellent communication networks. The story of his affair-fueled fraud had become cautionary tale material, shared in boardrooms as an example of how personal misconduct destroys professional careers. Emma's attempted comeback was even more entertaining. Her new Instagram bio read, "Authentic living, single mom, real talk about real life," a complete pivot from her previous family values brand. The comments section on her rebranding posts provided better entertainment than premium cable. Authentic? You mean like authentically sleeping with your sister's husband? Appeared under every post, liked by hundreds of followers who'd stayed subscribed just to watch her public humiliation continue. Her attempted pivot to single motherhood empowerment fell flat when Madison's college friends discovered the affair details and shared them across social media platforms. Emma's teenage daughter was now known on campus as the girl whose mom destroyed her family for Instagram content. The irony was crushing. Emma's personal brand had become so toxic it was damaging her children's reputations. The follower count continued hemorrhaging despite Emma's increasingly desperate content strategies. Motivational quotes about rising from adversity and learning from mistakes generated comment threads filled with receipts of her betrayal. Screenshots of hotel records, private investigator photos, voice recordings. The internet never forgets, and Emma's audience had long memories. Her attempted collaborations with smaller brands lasted exactly one business cycle before companies discovered her reputation baggage. The fitness supplement company that initially welcomed her authentic struggle narrative canceled their contract after customer complaints flooded their social media. The self-help book publisher who'd expressed interest in her comeback story pulled their offer when focus groups responded negatively to her name recognition. But the most fascinating development was watching their relationship implode under real-world pressure. The passionate affair that had justified destroying two families was cracking under financial stress and public scrutiny. My private investigator, yes, I'd kept him on retainer, provided monthly reports that read like relationship autopsies. David and Emma had moved in together after their respective evictions, sharing a cramped apartment in a neighborhood that represented significant lifestyle downgrades for both. Subjects observed in heated argument outside apartment building, read one report. Female heard shouting about employment prospects, male responding with accusations about social media addiction. Physical posturing suggested relationship tension. The fairy tale romance was morphing into mundane cohabitation between two unemployed, publicly disgraced individuals trying to rebuild careers from rock bottom. The excitement of secret hotel meetings had been replaced by arguments over rent money and job interview failures. David's attempts at geographic escape led him to Milwaukee, where a small marketing firm offered him a junior position at entry-level salary. The man who'd once commanded six-figure partnership distributions was now cold-calling local businesses from a shared cubicle, building client lists from scratch at age 38. Emma followed a similar path to Minneapolis, where her name recognition was minimal and her scandal hadn't penetrated local influencer circles. She'd started over with 3,000 followers and sponsorship deals worth hundreds rather than thousands of dollars. Her luxury apartment had been replaced by a studio above a coffee shop. Her designer wardrobe sold to cover moving expenses. The geographic solutions weren't solving their fundamental character problems. David's new employer in Milwaukee discovered his ethics violations during their standard background check, leading to another termination and another entry on his growing list of professional failures. Emma's Minneapolis marketing attempts were undermined when Chicago-based influencers shared her story with their industry contacts. The loneliness of their new reality became apparent through social media silence. David's Facebook posts, once filled with networking events and client celebrations, had dwindled to nothing. Emma's Instagram stories showed solitary meals and empty weekends, the vibrant social life she'd once documented replaced by isolated exile. Former friends and colleagues maintained careful distance to protect their own reputations. The dinner invitations stopped coming. The holiday party guest lists no longer included their names. Professional networking events became minefields where their presence could contaminate other attendees' reputations. I received updates through mutual acquaintances who took guilty pleasure in sharing their continued downfall. Sarah Patterson, despite her initial neutral stance, couldn't resist reporting on Emma's failed attempts to rebuild her social circle. She showed up at Jennifer's birthday party uninvited, Sarah whispered during a chance encounter at Starbucks. Everyone just stopped talking when she walked in. The silence was brutal. She left after 10 minutes. David's professional isolation was even more complete. Marcus had blacklisted him from industry events, warning other business owners about his ethics violations and fraud history. The marketing community that had once competed for his expertise now actively avoided association with his tainted reputation. Their relationship, stripped of its exciting secrecy and forbidden passion, was deteriorating into mutual blame and resentment. The same people who'd risked everything for stolen moments in hotel rooms were now trapped together in the consequences of their choices, watching each other fail at rebuilding the lives they destroyed. The thrill was gone, replaced by the grinding reality of unemployment, social exile, and the permanent consequences of temporary pleasure. Their love story had become a cautionary tale, and they were living out the unhappy ending in real time. From my comfortable distance, I watched their world continue burning, fascinated by how completely they'd underestimated the long-term cost of their short-term indulgence. The real ending was still being written, one failed job application and lost friendship at a time. The Villa Rosmarina Terrace overlooked rolling hills that stretched toward infinity, painted gold by the Tuscan sunset I was meant to share with David exactly 1 year ago. Instead, I sat alone with a glass of Brunello, celebrating the most liberating anniversary of my life. The reservation I'd made in naive hope had become my declaration of independence, a solo journey that proved happiness didn't require their participation. The morning routine had become my meditation. Coffee at dawn on the villa's stone terrace, watching mist rise from vineyards while reading emails from clients who respected my integrity. The silence was different from the loneliness I'd expected. This was peaceful, intentional, chosen rather than imposed by betrayal. My phone buzzed with a notification from Blackstone and Associates. Partnership promotion confirmed, senior managing partner effective January 1st. Congratulations, Rebecca. The promotion I'd earned through crisis management rather than despite it, my colleagues recognizing that someone who could handle personal devastation with such professional precision was exactly who they wanted leading their firm. The irony was beautiful in its completeness. David and Emma's affair had inadvertently launched my career to heights I might never have reached otherwise. Clients specifically requested the attorney who'd systematically dismantled her husband's professional reputation while maintaining her own spotless record. My crisis management skills had become legendary in Chicago's legal circles. Rebecca Stone doesn't just win cases, potential clients would say. She destroys opposition so completely they never recover. The Morrison acquisition had been forgotten, overshadowed by the masterclass in strategic destruction I delivered to my own family. New business inquiries arrived daily from executives facing their own betrayals, wanting representation from someone who understood that legal warfare required both professional skill and personal steel. My billing rate had increased 40% since the divorce, and my calendar was booked 6 months in advance. The villa's infinity pool reflected stars emerging in the darkening sky as I scrolled through messages I'd been avoiding. Emma's contact information appeared repeatedly in my blocked calls list, her desperation increasing with each failed attempt at communication. The final message had arrived that morning, timed perfectly to interrupt my peaceful breakfast. Rebecca, I know you probably won't read this, but I need you to know how sorry I am. Not for getting caught, but for what I did to our family. I destroyed everything beautiful in my life for something that meant nothing. I know you can't forgive me, but please know that I love you and I'm sorry. I read it twice, feeling nothing but mild curiosity about her current circumstances. The private investigator's last report indicated Emma was working retail in Minneapolis, her influencer career permanently buried under scandal. David was selling insurance in Milwaukee, his marketing expertise worthless with his reputation. My finger hovered over the delete button for exactly 3 seconds before pressing it. Some apologies arrived too late, some bridges burned too completely for reconstruction. Emma had made her choice in our bedroom. I was making mine on this Tuscan terrace. The wine paired perfectly with my satisfaction, a vintage that cost more than Emma's monthly salary in her new reality. Financial success had accelerated along with professional achievement. The partnership promotion came with equity stakes, profit sharing, and bonuses that made David's former income look modest. My investment portfolio had tripled since the divorce, freed from David's conservative spending preferences and risky business ventures. The house we'd shared was now mine exclusively, renovated and redecorated to erase every trace of our life together. The guest bedroom where Emma used to stay had become my home office, where I planned legal strategies that built my reputation while destroying my opponents. But the real transformation was internal. The woman who'd stood frozen in her hallway listening to betrayal through bedroom walls had evolved into someone who controlled narratives rather than being controlled by them. Crisis had revealed strength I hadn't known existed, precision I hadn't needed to develop, ruthlessness I'd never had opportunity to exercise. Dating had resumed 6 months after the divorce, but with entirely different criteria. Men who demonstrated integrity under pressure rather than charm in comfortable circumstances. Professionals who understood that trust, once broken, could never be fully repaired. Relationships built on mutual respect rather than romantic fantasy. The sunset painted the sky in shades of redemption as I raised my glass to the horizon. To Emma and David, I spoke aloud to the Italian evening. Thank you for showing me exactly who you were before I wasted more years pretending you were someone else. Their betrayal had been a gift wrapped in devastation. Without their affair, I might have remained the trusting wife and sister, building my life around people who viewed loyalty as optional. Their choices had forced me to discover my own strength, to build something better from the ashes of their destruction. The villa's guest book sat open on the table beside me, previous visitors' entries sharing gratitude for peaceful retreats and romantic getaways. I wrote carefully, conscious that my words would outlast my stay. To anyone reading this who's discovered betrayal in their life, the real ending belongs to you. Write it well. Our Chicago. My phone showed messages from friends celebrating their own successes, colleagues sharing professional victories, new romantic interests suggesting dinner plans for my return. A full life built on authentic relationships rather than the hollow performances David and Emma had provided. The stars emerged fully as evening deepened, countless points of light proving that beautiful things could exist independently, without requiring connection to shine. I'd learned to be complete rather than half of something broken, successful rather than supportive, strategic rather than trusting. Tomorrow I would return to Chicago, to the partnership position that awaited, to the life I'd built from the wreckage of their choices. But tonight belonged to this moment of perfect solitude, this celebration of becoming exactly who I was meant to be. They'd thought they were stealing my happiness. Instead, they'd given me the push to create something infinitely better. The real ending did belong to me, and I'd written it exactly as I wanted it to be. The wine glass caught starlight as I raised it one final time, toasting not their downfall but my own magnificent rebirth from the ashes of their betrayal. If this story of Rebecca's calculated revenge had you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Rebecca played that voice recording of Emma's betrayal while they sat drinking wine in the living room, knowing she'd already destroyed both their careers. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more thrilling stories of justice and revenge. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.